Moving on to something else now, a monumental $1 billion plan to expand Shasta Dam is causing concern among some Native Americans and environmental groups. The 602-foot-tall dam on the Sacramento River forms California's largest reservoir, Shasta Lake. It supplies water from Silicon Valley to San Diego. The plan supporters want to raise the dam by as much as 18.5 feet to increase storage capacity to meet the state's water needs. And Craig, why is there opposition to this, and does it threaten to derail the plan?
Not a new idea, by the way. This has been kicked around for at least a decade, going back to a state-federal joint water planning initiative of the 1990s. It's back in the news now because, for two reasons, really. One, they've put out the environmental impact statement for it, which is about 10,000 pages long, so I'm just assuming you've all read it. And also,
I did just last night.
Yeah, right. And also because there is growing pressure, growing political pressure and industrial pressure from the water agencies for more storage in California. So that's why we're even talking about this now.
Oh, okay, but I've got to ask, after our experience with the Bay Bridge, which was supposed to cost under $1 billion, and now it's at $7 billion, I think, and it took how many years? What guarantees, what is the record here on building this kind of an infrastructure project in California, or the likelihood that this would ever get done?
Well, remember, it's a federal project. You know, it's part of the Central Valley Project, which is a big federal water project that was going back to the 1930s, actually. And Shasta is the sort of the centerpiece of that whole system. And so it ultimately would have to go to Congress, and Congress would provide money for it. But yes, the $1.2 billion or whatever is the on-paper construction price, of course. But believe it or not, of the 3 or 4 different alternatives for surface storage that they're considering, it's one of the cheaper ones.
At $1 billion?
At $1.2 billion, right. Proponents are saying this is a good idea because the dam's already there. We're just adding to the top of it. So it is a lot cheaper than building another dam.
Well, I've got to ask you this. You've reported on water in this state. We have a bit of a water problem, droughts, water shortages. So where is this water going to come from?
Well, that's one of the arguments that opponents are making, is that just making the dam bigger doesn't create new water by some kind of alchemy. The Bureau of Reclamation says that lake fills the capacity roughly 1 out of every 3 years. But of course, you're paying for it every year. So that's one of the bases for opposition. Also, environmentalists are not happy about, potential habitat destruction, because the footprint of the lake would get bigger. You put more water in the lake, and then you have the whole issue with the cultural assets that are there in the Winnemem Wintu Indian tribe as well.
And what are they saying? It would possibly flood their sacred lands? Or?
Right, which of course some of that happened when they made the dam in the first place and created the lake. Now they're saying they would lose another 60 to 80 of their sacred sites if the lake got bigger. The problem is that the Wintu, unfortunately for them, are not a federally recognized tribe. They're recognized by the state, but not the federal government, and unfortunately they're dealing with a federal agency. And
so they have no legal
So they're not even
here.
Considered a legitimate stakeholder, in terms of, the process, unfortunately.
So if this doesn't get done, what's the alternative? Is any other project out there?
There are other projects. There are other big engineering projects being considered. One of them is a valley that doesn't have a river going through it, up north of Sacramento, that they would just seal off and flood. That's called off-stream storage. And there's an idea to expand another big reservoir down in the San Joaquin Valley too. But some of the critics of this are saying, look, let's take a holistic approach to this. Rather than just pour more concrete to try to solve California's water shortage issues, let's talk about conservation. Let's talk about how we can work surface water and groundwater together to try to maximize the benefit from both, and just rather than pour more concrete.
And public hearings are happening now, and they run through, what, the end of September?
This is the time they call the public comment period. It goes about another month or so, and there'll be a series of public meetings between now and then. And
you have a story on this on KQED Radio, we want to point out. And when is that airing?
Monday morning. It's our regular Monday morning science feature segment, 6:30 and 8:30.
All right, we look forward to that.
All right.
Thank you, Craig.